The dining room of our family's Victorian mansion sparkled with warm candlelight from the antique crystal chandelier, casting dancing shadows across the mahogany table that had hosted 3 generations of Thompson family celebrations. Mom had spared no expense for her 50th birthday dinner, transforming our formal dining room into something worthy of a magazine spread. White roses from her prized garden served as centerpieces, and the finest china, the Wedgwood set that had been in our family for decades, reflected the golden glow of 50 elegant candles. I sat quietly at my usual spot near the far end of the table, positioned perfectly to observe both the intimate family gathering and the familiar oil paintings that lined the walls. The portraits of successful Thompson ancestors seemed to watch over us with expressions of stern approval, their painted eyes following every conversation with the weight of family tradition and expectation. Mom held court at the head of the table, radiant in her emerald silk dress, her auburn hair styled in an elegant updo that had probably cost more than most people spent on their monthly mortgage payment. At 50, Patricia Thompson still commanded attention when she entered a room, and tonight, surrounded by her children and closest family friends, she was in her absolute element. 50 years, she said, raising her crystal glass of Dom Perignon, and I can honestly say that every single one of them has been a gift. Richard and I have built something beautiful together. This home, this family, this life that we're so proud of. Dad beamed at her from the opposite end of the table, his silver hair perfectly styled and his navy blazer complementing his authoritative presence. At 54, Richard Thompson commanded respect in the financial world, his investment firm handling portfolios for some of the city's wealthiest families. His success was evident in everything from his custom cufflinks to the way other wealthy men sought his advice at country club gatherings. My older brother Michael dominated the conversation from his position at Mom's right hand, his voice carrying the confidence that comes from being the acknowledged family success story. At 28 he had just made partner at his law firm, specializing in corporate mergers that regularly made the business pages. His wife Jennifer sat beside him, elegant in her designer dress, playing the role of perfect daughter-in-law with practiced ease. Speaking of building beautiful things, Michael said, adjusting his Patek Philippe watch, Jennifer and I have some news to share. We've been looking at houses in Beacon Hill and we found the perfect place. Georgian colonial, 6 bedrooms, amazing view of the common. Jennifer smiled proudly, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the candlelight as she gestured. It's everything we've dreamed of for starting our family. The neighborhood is perfect for children and the schools are some of the best in the state. Mom clasped her hands together with genuine delight. Oh darling, that's wonderful. This family has always believed in investing in real estate. Property is the foundation of true wealth, something solid that can be passed down through generations. I continued eating my perfectly prepared salmon, letting their familiar conversation about success and investments wash over me like background music. They had no idea that the simple black dress I was wearing had been custom-tailored by the same designer who dressed tech moguls and hedge fund managers, or that the understated gold necklace around my throat was worth more than Michael's monthly law firm salary. Of course, Dad added, swirling his aged bourbon thoughtfully, buying property requires substantial capital and excellent credit. It's not something that someone with unstable finances could even consider. Banks are very particular about who they approve for mortgages in those price ranges. The comment was clearly directed at me, though Dad's eyes remained fixed on his glass as he spoke. For the past 2 years, ever since I'd moved back home after college, they had made it clear that they viewed my presence as temporary and my financial prospects as limited. Speaking of finances and housing situations, Mom's voice took on that particular tone that indicated she was about to make an important announcement. I think this birthday celebration is the perfect time to discuss some family changes that Richard and I have been considering. The table fell silent except for the soft classical music playing from the hidden speakers and the distant sound of rain beginning to tap against the tall windows. Everyone's attention focused on Mom with the intensity of spotlights. Jessica, she said, turning toward me with the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes, you've been home for almost 2 years now, and while we've enjoyed having you here, Richard and I think it's time for you to establish your independence. I set down my fork and looked at her expectantly, though I already knew where this conversation was heading. We'd been building toward this moment for months, ever since Michael had announced his engagement and Mom had started making comments about empty nesters and young adults who need to launch. We've decided that you need to move out by Monday, Mom continued, her voice carrying the authoritative tone she used when she wanted to make it clear that a decision was final. This is our house, our sanctuary, and frankly, having an adult child living at home sends the wrong message about our family's success and independence. Michael nodded approvingly, clearly having been briefed on this decision in advance. It's really for your own good, Jess. You'll never develop real independence or financial responsibility as long as you have this safety net. Jennifer chimed in with her usual supportive commentary. Exactly. Some of our friends are still living with their parents and it's honestly embarrassing. At a certain point you have to take responsibility for your own life. Dad leaned forward, assuming his role as the family's financial advisor. We're not throwing you out on the street, of course. We'll give you a small loan to help with first month's rent and security deposit, but after that you'll need to manage on your own. It's time to see what you're really made of. The words hung in the air like expensive perfume. Overwhelming, suffocating, and impossible to ignore. I could feel their collective judgment, their assumption that I was a 26-year-old failure who had been taking advantage of their generosity while contributing nothing meaningful to the family legacy. Mom stood up slightly, clearly enjoying the theatrical moment. Monday gives you 3 days to pack your belongings and find somewhere else to live. I'm sure there are plenty of apartments in your price range if you're willing to live modestly. This is our house, she emphasized, gesturing around the elegant dining room with its antique furniture and original artwork. We've worked for 30 years to build this life, and we deserve to enjoy it without having to worry about adult children who refuse to launch themselves. That's when I reached into my purse and pulled out a leather document folder. The same one I'd been carrying for the past 18 months, waiting for exactly this moment. Actually, Mom, I said calmly, placing the folder on the table between the white roses and the birthday cake. There's something important we need to discuss about this house. Dad looked at the folder with the kind of skepticism that wealthy people reserve for documents they don't recognize. What's that supposed to be? I opened the folder and pulled out a thick stack of legal documents, each page bearing official seals and signatures. These are the property deeds, mortgage documents, and transfer papers for 847 Beacon Street. This house. Mom laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. Jessica, I don't know what game you think you're playing, but those can't possibly be legitimate. We own this house free and clear. We paid off the mortgage 3 years ago. You're right, I agreed, pulling out the first document and placing it where everyone could see it. You did pay off the original mortgage 3 years ago. But then you took out a second mortgage 18 months later to cover Dad's business losses, and then a third mortgage 6 months after that when the investment firm started having cash flow problems. The smile faded from Mom's face as she leaned forward to look at the documents more closely. Dad's expression shifted from confidence to confusion to something approaching alarm. According to the county records, I continued, pulling out additional pages, you defaulted on all 3 mortgages 14 months ago. The bank initiated foreclosure proceedings, and the house was scheduled to be auctioned on the courthouse steps. Michael reached for the documents, his legal training kicking in as he began scanning the official paperwork. These look legitimate, he said slowly, his voice losing its earlier confidence. But I don't understand what this has to do with. I bought the house, I said simply, placing the final document on the table. 14 months ago, when you defaulted and the bank was about to foreclose, I purchased 847 Beacon Street through my investment company for $2.3 million. The silence that followed was so complete that I could hear the antique grandfather clock in the hallway chiming the half hour, the rain growing stronger against the windows, the barely audible hum of the mansion's heating system working to maintain the perfect temperature. That's impossible, Dad whispered, his face going pale. You don't have that kind of money. You're 26 years old with a college degree and no real job history. I smiled gently, pulling out my phone and opening the banking app that showed my current portfolio balance. Actually, Dad, I'm a very successful cryptocurrency and tech stock trader. I started with $5,000 that Grandma Thompson left me when she died, and I've built it into a $37 million investment portfolio over the past 8 years. The number hung in the air like a revelation. $37 million. More money than Dad's investment firm managed for most of their clients. And I'd earned every penny of it while they assumed I was a directionless college graduate with no real prospects. Mom was staring at the property deed, her finger tracing the signature line where my name appeared in bold black ink. Jessica Marie Thompson, sole owner, she read aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been letting you live here rent-free for the past 14 months, I continued, my tone remaining calm and factual. I thought it would be easier for everyone if you didn't know about the ownership change, especially given Dad's business troubles and the stress that financial uncertainty can create. Jennifer looked stricken. But we've been planning to buy a house. How can we afford Beacon Hill if your parents are essentially homeless? We're not homeless, I corrected gently. We're my tenants. And there's no reason that has to change unless you want it to. Dad found his voice, though it came out rough with emotion. Jessica, why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us think we still owned our own home? Because every time I tried to talk about my investments or my financial success, you cut me off or changed the subject, I replied honestly. When I mentioned making money in cryptocurrency, you told me it was gambling. When I talked about my tech stock gains, you said I was lucky and that luck always runs out. After a while, I stopped trying to share my achievements with people who were determined to see me as a failure. Michael was still studying the legal documents, his professional training evident in the way he examined every detail. These are all legitimate. The signatures, the notarizations, the county recordings, everything checks out. You actually own this house. Mom looked around the dining room, her dining room, with new eyes as if seeing it for the first time. So when you said I needed to move out by Monday, you were essentially trying to evict me from my own property, I finished. Which, legally speaking, you have no authority to do. The grandfather clock chimed again, marking another 15 minutes in what had become the longest and most revealing conversation our family had ever had. I could see the wheels turning in their minds as they processed not just the financial implications, but the complete reversal of power dynamics that my revelation had created. $37 million, Mom repeated, as if saying it aloud would help her understand how her youngest daughter had accumulated more wealth than most people would see in several lifetimes. $37 million in liquid investments, I clarified. The real estate holdings, including this house, add another $12 million to the portfolio. I own 4 properties in Boston, 2 in New York, and a vacation home in Martha's Vineyard. Dad leaned back in his chair, his financial advisor instincts finally overriding his shock. How did you manage returns like that without any formal training or industry connections? By studying the markets obsessively for 8 years, I replied. By treating every investment like a research project. By staying up until 3 a.m. reading financial reports and technology trend analyses. By never investing money I couldn't afford to lose, and by learning from every mistake. I pulled out another document from my folder. This is the current market value assessment for this property. It's worth $3.8 million now, which means I've made a $1.5 million profit just by protecting it from foreclosure. Mom reached across the table and took my hand, her eyes bright with tears. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. We had no idea what you'd accomplished. Can you ever forgive us for treating you like a failure? I finished softly. I forgive you. But I hope next time, you won't judge someone by how they look, or what you assume about them. Michael cleared his throat. So, what happens now? Do we owe you back rent? Are we getting kicked out? I laughed. Of course not. You're my family. But things will be different from now on. Dad frowned. Different how? I'm not your dependent daughter anymore, I said firmly. I'm a successful investor who chose to let her family live in her house because she loves them. I'd like to be treated that way. Mom stood and hugged me tightly. You're not moving out. This is your home and we're lucky to be here. I smiled. Actually, I have a better idea. Let's make it official. You can stay as long as you want, but let's be honest about how things really are. Dad's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. What kind of arrangement? You'll pay fair rent, say $8,000 a month for a house this size. I'll use that to help Michael and Jennifer with their Beacon Hill down payment and start a trust for future grandkids. The room went quiet. It felt like a bridge between our past and future. Dad nodded slowly. $8,000's below market rate. Family discount, I grinned. Besides, I can afford to be generous when I own $49 million in real estate. Michael looked stunned. You'd really help us with the house? Of course. Family takes care of family, but as equals, not charity. Later, as we ate birthday cake, Mom pulled me aside. I was wrong about you, she whispered. You're not our dependent child. You're our safety net. And that's the best gift I could have gotten. I handed her a big slice of cake. Next time you hold a family meeting about someone's living situation, check the property records first. Mom laughed, a mix of pride and embarrassment. Deal. And Jessica, I'm so proud of you. That night, walking through my childhood home, the one I'd saved from foreclosure, I realized something important. The best revenge isn't proving people wrong about your limits. It's proving them wrong about your love. The next morning, Dad called his accountant to arrange rent payments. Mom began planning a dinner to celebrate. After all, it's not every day your daughter turns out to be the family's secret millionaire landlord.